PanicInspiration.com.
Earlier this year, I made a video countdown of my 100 favorite movies. And one criticism that some people, nobody said it to me, but I can see it, somebody saying it to me, I tend to go for really well-known big movies. Empire Strikes Back was way up there, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Last Crusade, classic movies, Duck Soup, Citizen Kane, The Godfather, Avengers Endgame made the list. Way in the back, but it made the list. And some people would say, well, why don't you have more foreign films? Why don't you have more sort of little lesser known films? Well, there were a few little lesser known films that made my list. One of them is A Face in the Crowd. This is the Criterion Collection Blu-ray. This is the way that you should watch this movie. A Face in the Crowd came out in 1957 and was directed by Elia Kazan and stars Andy Griffith. Sheriff Andy Taylor of Mayberry. That's who is the lead of this movie. And he plays a degenerate, evil man. A slimy, gross human being. And he is so good in this movie. I mean, the movie didn't do well at the time. I think it was probably just too cynical. How Andy Griffith didn't get an Oscar nomination and a win for this movie. I don't know what else came out that year. Andy Griffith's performance in A Face in the Crowd had to be the best performance that year. The movie is about Lonesome Rhodes. And Lonesome Rhodes is this drunk drifter, played by Andy Griffith, who gets discovered by a local radio station when this lady goes in. She has her own little show called The Face in the Crowd, where she goes and she just sort of interviews interesting people. She goes into the jail cell, and Lonesome Rhodes is entertaining. And this little segment on the radio show, people want more of it. So she goes and she tracks down Lonesome Rhodes as he's heading out of town. She brings him back. She puts him on the radio. People start tuning in. And what do you know? He's even able to influence the local politics a bit with his opinions. And this leads to a TV show. And this leads to a national TV show. And this leads to him becoming the most famous man in the United States. And this leads to politicians running for president, knocking on his door saying, help me form my image in this new revolutionary thing, television. We have to be on TV. We have to look a certain way. We have to sound a certain way. Teach us how to do that. And so this degenerate scumbag works his way up to the highest levels of power. And it shows the sort of easy corruption that can happen when you get somebody like Lonesome Rhodes sweet talking their way into the American heart. Now, this movie, maybe more than any other movie that I can think of, foreshadows what is to come, not, immediately after, not 5 years, 10 years after, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, and on and on. It predicts the rise of sort of first you could see it as like the cable news people, especially Fox News. That's how I lean. I don't like Fox News. I don't particularly like Keith Olbermann anymore. I used to watch his show, and he would refer to Glenn Beck as Lonesome Rhodes Beck, which was appropriate. But you get those guys, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh. That was Lonesome Rhodes. Decades after this movie, you could see the rise of influencers. Lonesome Rhodes would be an influencer in this time. You could see the rise of Donald Trump as this. Again, I'm going to show my cards on this. As this stupid, ignorant, degenerate man who somehow rises to the highest levels of power and sways a large part of the country to thinking he is the greatest thing ever. This movie, I mean, it blew me away the first. I never heard of it. I bought it in a box set. It came with All the President's Men and Network. And Facing the Crowd, I didn't care anything about. It was the one I cared about the least. But I bought it. I had it. So I said, I'll pop it in. This was, I think I was 24 at the time. It has been near the top of my favorite movies list ever since. I think it came in at like number 17 in my ranking. Give me a few more years, it could be in the top 10. This is a fantastic movie. And it's a movie that not a lot of people have heard of. And maybe you see Andy Griffith on the cover and you go, oh, Andy Griffith. You mean like Mayberry and all? Yeah. Don't go by the Andy Griffith Show. Andy Griffith is an amazing actor, and it shows in this movie. I love the Andy Griffith Show too, but he's a completely different person. And he's got the same sort of way of talking. He can't shake that Andy Griffith kind of charm. But here he turns it ugly. He turns it just repulsive. To the point where it made me gasp when I watched it. I remember showing it to my daughter. I remember her gasping aloud at certain points because you can't believe how awful this person is, and that the path of destruction that he leaves, the people he just casually destroys on his just thirst for power. A Face in the Crowd is a remarkable film. It deserves to be better known. It's gotten more of a reputation in the last 20 years. It really deserves to be on many lists of the greatest movies ever made. It's prophetic. There are not a lot of movies you can say that about. Very, very, very few movies you can say that about. But Elia Kazan, he saw the future. He looked at television and he saw something that nobody else could see at the time, where this was inevitably going. And boy, he nails it. He nails it. You watch it now, this movie could, with a few tweaks, this movie could be released now. And it would feel just as fresh. Face in the Crowd, 5 stars. One of the greatest movies ever made. And I highly urge everybody, go out. You can find the Criterion Collection. It's still in print. It's not expensive. This is one where I'd say, don't rent it. Don't go on Amazon. Buy this movie. I don't think you'll regret it.
Their worlds.
Sort of gave myself the challenge of, okay,